Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As always, it's a pleasure to see you all, to share together some Divrei Torah before Shabbat, Parashat Beha'alotecha. First, the class is sponsored by Victor and Frida Cohen in honor of their very best friends, Jack and Esther Heatery. I strongly believe that they didn't come to Florida because they like Florida. They came to Florida because it was too long without his body, so he couldn't take it anymore. I don't know who called who. If it's Jack who said to Victor, Victor, I can't take my wife anymore. I need to air out a little bit. Would you please come? He said, what do you mean? It's the coronavirus. No one travels. Just come. And sure enough, Victor and Frida were on the plane. Or if it's the opposite, Victor said, I need someone else. Frida is making me crazy. We don't know the inside. What we know is that we love you both. When I say both, it's both families, both couples. And it's so nice to have you here. I'm so sad you're leaving next week, but Bezat Hashem, I know Bezat Hashem, next time we see each other, we'll be in better times and great semachot, and everything will be fine. So thank you, Victor, for sponsoring. Victor is also sponsoring in honor of Ike and Rosalie Rudy, who are also great, great friends of our congregation. And we're very honored that Victor is sponsoring for his good friends. So without any further ado, I would like to open tonight's discussion on, of course, what we've been witnessing for the past few days, for approximately 10 to 15 days. The protests, having some that were peaceful and rightful. Going to protest peacefully is in the right of any citizen of modern society. And it's okay. We're allowed to have our voices and to have our differences and to be upset. That's perfectly understandable. But of course, when it became, as we said last week in the shiur, when it becomes violent, when it becomes about, stealing and taking and breaking and looting and violence and this is just horrendous, horrific. And this is absolutely no way to justify these kinds of behaviors. It is so strong that people forgot about the coronavirus. It sounds like it was 10 years ago, But unfortunately, this is like a dream. You go from one problem to the next. What's going on? It's crazy. And like many people said, the mayor from New York didn't have any problem with social distancing in the looting and the protestings, but with the Hasidim who were making a wedding outdoors, he had a problem. I'm not coming to justify the Hasidim who were not careful. It's not my job to condemn anyone, but the striking difference is unfortunately pretty evident, and it's sad. But it is what it is. It happened. Bezat Hashem, hopefully we passed that. But I would like to talk about this and take a moment to speak about this because my understanding is that this was very, very violent. I did think that I'm young. I thought it never happened like this before. So I spoke today to Aaron Cohen, and he was telling me that in 1977 in New York, there was actually a big blackout, and he told me it was much worse than this time. I can't imagine much worse than this time. I was born in the Pacific era of the world, and he told me in 1977, New York, he told me you could ask the people who remember, they were burning buildings, stores and buildings, and people were like cloistered into their houses. They would not go out at night. They were afraid for their life, but like much worse, much more pronounced than this time. It was longer and more violent. He said, look, unfortunately, there are people like this in the world, There's nothing you could do about it. And so it was a little comforting, I must tell you the truth, because, you worry about these things, and, it's just, I don't know if it's selfish, but knowing that there were things like this happening before, it's like, okay, so it's not the first time. I was disturbed by someone's comment, which was online and became popular. This is a person who gave a class and spoke about this and said to the Jews, he said, this is like Kristallnacht. This is the same like Kristallnacht. And he said, this is a wake-up call for Jews to leave America and to move to Israel. And, I would like to speak about what he said, because I disagree on every count of what he said. It's fine, we're allowed to disagree. But I would like to share with you my perspective on the abuse of terms. I believe we live in an era that people use terminologies and words that they do not control. They don't know what they're saying. And I'll give you a few examples. When a Jew is being pulled over by a cop who is tall, blonde, and strong, and he speaks with arrogance, and he speaks with a loud voice, it's not the right way to speak. Not because you're a cop, you should be speaking and saying things that are hurtful or strong and too strong on people. We should not having policemen who abuse from their power. No question about this. But when they say, this guy is a Nazi, they don't know what they're talking about. Because it's disrespectful to anyone who was during the Shoah and hears, oh, you really want to know what the Nazi looks like? That's not a Nazi. He's a person who is abusing from his power. Fine. He just raised his voice. Fine. He shouldn't have done that. But measure your words. Measure your words. It's hurtful when you say to somebody that he's a Nazi, or even if you say about somebody that he's a Nazi, when he's not a Nazi. He's just an American policeman who is trying to protect the society, but he's abusing from his power. I understand. You could be upset. But don't use the word Nazi. Nazi, it's not true. He's not a Nazi. He's somebody who shouldn't have raised his voice. I'll give you another typical example of the Jewish people. I don't know why everyone is on black. I don't see anybody. It's not funny to speak to black. I see just Mrs. Lipton and David Kuyat. Thank you very much. Be a little sensitive to the speaker, because I don't know if you like what I'm saying. So if at least you smile, I know that you like what I'm saying. If not, then maybe I'm speaking to the wall. But it's no problem. If you like it like that, I can do the same. I just speak like this for a couple of minutes, and let's see if you appreciate it. So I was saying that, some Jews, you don't like it. Okay. It's called midah keneged midah. In Hebrew, whatever you do, you get a mirror effect, happen to you. Fine. At least we got some people who are sensitive to my call. The other ones, sorry for not being sensitive to my call. Thank you for staying on black. Anyways, having said so, when you go to the airport and you come late and you get to the check-in and they tell you, sir, lady, I'm sorry, the flight is closed. And what do we say, Jews? Anti-Semitic, right? This happened to all of us. Anti-Semitic. My answer is no, that's not anti-Semitism. That's you who came late to the flight and thought that the world is on its knees for you, and therefore you expect everybody to open the door for you. No, that's not called anti-Semitism. That's called next time, go early enough so you could get to your flight on time. It's not right when we use those expressions. They are very hurtful, they're very strong, and we use them for shtuyot. The cop is not a Nazi. And the person who didn't let you go in, okay, fine, she could have been nicer, but it doesn't make this person anti-Semitic. It makes you a person, when I say you, I mean me, a person who was careless, who should have gone on time to the airport and wouldn't have had to suffer that. So I'm going to use now this to talk about the person who said, no names of course, that the looting was like Kristallnacht. So I'm ignorant. I don't know exactly what Kristallnacht is. So I look online. I'm going to read to you what Kristallnacht was. Think about it, and you tell me if you think that it's the same thing. So I'm going to read 2 lines. Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, was a pogrom against Jews carried out by SA paramilitary forces and civilians throughout Nazi Germany on the 9th and 10th of November 1938. So we have 2 very important informations here. Number 1, it was against the Jews. Number 2, SA paramilitary forces and civilians, which means that the government was involved. The German authorities looked on without intervening. The name Kristallnacht comes from the shards of broken glass that littered the streets after the windows of Jewish-owned stores, buildings, and synagogues were smashed. The pretext for the attacks was the assassination of the German diplomat, etc. So again, here it's a pogrom against the Jews, done by paramilitary forces and civilians. The German authorities are looking without doing anything about it, and they broke Jewish stores, buildings, and synagogues. Jewish homes, hospitals, and schools were ransacked as attackers demolished buildings with sledgehammers. Rioters destroyed 267 synagogues throughout Germany and Austria. Over 7,000 Jewish businesses were damaged or destroyed, and 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and incarcerated in concentration camps. I'm going to stop here. Does this sound like what just happened? No. What just happened was a bunch of lunatics who hadn't had a job for 2 months or 3 months, didn't have an income, and they saw an opportunity. They jumped in stores and they took luxury bags and the animals, and they broke businesses and they hurt a lot the economy. But this has nothing to do with Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht is something else totally. It's against the Jews. It's done by the government. The government is definitely not there to protect. It was 30,000 Jews who were taken to the deportation camps. Why you compare the things? Why people talk because the air is free? Why scare the people? We are living Kristallnacht. It's time to live to Israel. Come on. Do your research before. Do your homework. Compare apples with apples, not apples with pistachios. I mean, I don't try to minimize that what happened is nothing. I'm very upset with what happened, as you already know, and everyone is. But that's not Kristallnacht. And when he was asked if he's going to leave to Israel, he said, well, you know, I have a business and I have to take care of this and I have to take care of that. So I'm not really ready to go. I don't know. It gets me upset that people use words that are not accurate. So no, don't call the cop a Nazi, and don't say that the person in American Airlines is an anti-Semitic because he came late to the airport. And don't call what happened Kristallnacht. It's very hurtful for the people who went through Kristallnacht or the Holocaust, and they tell you, how are you comparing, you know? It's just not accurate, and it's not respectful to compare. So, having spoken about words that are not supposed to be used in a bad way, I would like to share with you some words that are not used in a good way. And this will begin our speech about extremism. Those words that are used in our society in a different way is, for example, there's something happening to our people. We're becoming very extremists in many grounds, in many fields. It's not only us, it's the world. The world is extreme. You know, sometimes, today somebody asked me, why don't we move to Israel? I said, I would move to Israel. But in Israel, people are so extreme. I said, you know, the Chilonim are super Chilonim. The Haredim, they're super Haredim. The Mizrahis, they're super Mizrahis. I don't find myself. I try to be a balanced person. It's very hard for me to find. Like, where would you move to? What neighborhood? I don't know what I would do. Maybe one day. I don't know. God forgive me. I said something not nice but I didn't say about Israel. I'm saying the society is just different. I don't know. Extremism is not my thing, and people become very extremists, even in politics. Like the right became very right. The left became very left. We see like things have become so clear and so different. The independents who are supposed to be balanced, I don't know if they exist anymore. Nobody talks about them. It's not only in politics, it's in everything. People are so passionate about the one thing that characterizes them. So I give you an example, even for us. Do you remember when we used to eat kosher food? Like only kosher? Now, when you buy meat, I don't know if you realize, there are 5 stamps on the meat. 5 stamps. Why do you need 5 kosher agencies so that you are comfortable that the meat is kosher? Why is that? How did we get there? Why is one not enough? Yeah, and if you don't have at least 3 rabbis who say it's good, then it's not good. Why eating kosher is not good? You know when you sign for these Pesach programs and they tell you a whole list about you're going to eat from the plate of Moshe Rabbeinu. You know, no this, no that, no. And the biggest ones in strongest letters, you know what it is? Strictly kosher. Yani kosher is not good. It has to be strictly kosher. Now, if you remove strictly from the expression, you wouldn't be comfortable eating in that place if they just tell you it's kosher. No, it has to be strictly kosher. So if it's not strictly anymore, it's not kosher. So what does kosher mean if it's not enough by itself? That's what I call exaggeration, extremism. This is just one example. If you're going to give a regular shiur, people will not come. Some people will come. But if you want to attract the public, what do you say? Special guest. If it's a regular guest, not good enough. He has to be special. Exaggeration, stretch of expressions to get the attention of people. Special class, amazing program. If you just say it's a shiur Torah, no, it doesn't sell. It's called the commercialization of our religion. The same way in business, you have to advertise in a certain way so that the customer feels that this is the deal of their life. Here too, it has to be something special. Because if it's something regular, then people are not going to come. It's like the kosher. If it's not extremely kosher, then it's not good enough. You know, in Mexico, I remember when I came to Mexico the first time I went there, and I went to a store and I started buying things. I'm talking about the kosher store. So, so they have there the stamp of the Kehila, Magen David, KMD, KMD, kosher Magen David. Oh, I came, I bought a couple things. My wife tells me, no, you can't buy this. I'm like, what do you mean you can't buy this? There's the blue stamps of the Kehila. This is Magen David. No, this is not Mehadrin. I'm like, what? No, this is not Mehadrin. But how do you so Mehadrin, by the way, it was said in Ilchot Chanukah that when you light the nerot, you know, 1 per person of the house, or when you increase Mehadrin, how do you transfer it from Hanukkah into Kashrut? I said, it's the same Kehila that tells you that it's kosher. It's the same Kehila that tells you it's Mehadrin. Why are we there? That's called extremism. That means that we are talking about a religion and it's not enough for us. It's not good enough. We have to go further. We have to go far. Why is that? I don't know. You talk about people and somebody tells you this person is smart. That's not enough. You know how you say these days? Oh, this guy is a genius. This guy is extremely brilliant. Well, being brilliant is not enough. You have to be extremely brilliant to be able to sell it. And I could go on and on. I could go on and on. For Talmidei Chachamim. He's a big Talmid Chacham. If he's a thin Talmid Chacham, the small Talmid Chacham, it doesn't work. Why do we do that? Go on, and always adding more and more layers. Why is that? It's called extremism. Extreme situations, since we're going to talk about being extreme, they bring special behaviors from people. It could either be very good behaviors or it could be negative behaviors from people. I'm going to give you a few examples. In 1985, in Mexico City, was the biggest earthquake that Mexico City ever had. Tens of thousands of people died, hundreds of businesses fell. It was a big, tragic moment. Anyone who lived in the 1980s in Mexico City will remember forever this. The earthquake of 1985. And you had two kinds of behaviors. You have the behaviors of the people who want to save others, to see maybe under the rubble there's a survivor, there's somebody. It was extreme chesed, like whenever there's a problem. And then you had the behavior of others who went from rubble to rubble, from building to building, trying to find computers, money, pens, paper, whatever they could find to steal, to take everything that they could. That's called, in extreme situations, you have different behaviors, either good or bad. You even had in Mexico City, for the ones who went, there is a big avenue called Reforma. On Reforma, there's an obelisk, and on top of it is a big symbolism of Mexico City called the angel. It's a beautiful gold angel on top of an obelisk. And this angel, the first time I went to Mexico, I was dating my wife, who comes from Mexico, and I asked her, tell me something, this angel, is it made out of gold? She told me, it's a very interesting story. Actually, it used to be made out of gold. It was a beautiful thing. It was representative of the whole country. But in 1985, when it fell, people went and took chips of the angel, started taking pieces of the angel home. So it got stolen. And every time there was an earthquake, it's on top of an obelisk, it falls, boom, the first that would fall would be the angel. So they would take the gold from there. So they decided, they learned their lesson, and just paint it in fake gold, and that's what they did. On these extreme situations, that's what happens. We just lived it with the coronavirus. In the coronavirus, the extreme situations brought good to the good people. The good people became better. They became extremists of being good. They did more chesed, they opened their hearts, they opened their pockets, they opened everything they could to help others. If they knew of someone who was old or poor or couldn't afford something, they went out of their way to help others. That's what happens in extreme situations. But then you had the other side. You had a lot of doctors, a lot of politicians, governors, mayors, who felt it was the right moment to impose their thoughts on others, to not let others think for themselves, as I discussed last week. That is called the situations of extremism. We're becoming extremists. The world is extremists. What is going on in this world? What is going on? Why is the world turning extremists? And it's not only in politics, and it's not only in views in general of people, it's also by us. We are becoming also extremists. And we'll discuss that a little later. But first, why is it that we are living extremism today? We thought there was extremism in the Islamic terrorist groups. Remember that was the problem a few months ago? In the meantime, we had a lot of other problems, so we totally forgot. Anybody remembers the word Al-Qaeda? ISIS? For some reason, they're all gone. Nobody hears about them. It was Islamic extremism. And then in Europe, the resurgence of anti-Semitism and far-right groups who came to power in certain countries in Europe. And no one understood what is going on. Well, I would like to discuss with you what I believe is going on. There's a genius thing happening in our Torah. In our Torah, Rabotai, there's something called mingling always with others. You cannot pray. I mean, you could pray without a minyan, but it's strongly encouraged to go and pray with a minyan. And if you don't attend every day, go once a week. But you have to have people around you. And I'll tell you why. The Gemara tells us a very strong expression about the Babylonians. The Gemara says, Hane Bavlai Tipshae. These stupid Babylonians. Why did it call them stupid Babylonians? Says the Gemara, because they used to study Torah alone, by themselves. So what's the problem? You can't take a book and study Torah by yourself? Says the Gemara, no. If you constantly study by yourself, you will slowly continue in the digging of your own philosophy and ideology without having anyone around you correct you or help you or disagree with you or express a different view, so that you are exposed to someone else's way of thinking. But when you study by yourself constantly, you become, the Gemara, I'm using the word tipesh, you become a fool. Why? Because you are investing too much in your own way of thinking, and it's not healthy. Who said we are right? Who said our way of thinking is correct? How many times do I have conversations with people who have no idea what they're talking about? And all I need is for them to listen. You know how many times I meet with young couples who are not religious, and I tell them, you know, if you want me to marry you, you need to take classes of Taharat HaMishpacha. They tell me, no, you know, we're not going to do that. And I tell them, you know, a little angry, but intellectually, I'm saying, do you think it has any validity for someone to say about something that they don't like it if they don't know what they're talking about? It's so immature. It's like the kids when you tell them, do you want to try broccoli for first time? And all the kids, because it looks green and it is a vegetable, they will tell you no. And you say, but how do you know? And what do they tell you? Oh, I don't like it. You don't like it? Did you ever try it? No. So how could you say you don't like it if you never tried it? So I tell these people, you already have an opinion about the mikveh, about Taharat HaMishpacha, and you don't know what it is? You never studied the topic? Would you please give yourself the courtesy and the respect of finding out what it is so that you make an educated choice if you want to do it or not? And when I say this argument, usually it's silence, because they know I'm right. You can't work only with yourself. You cannot worship your ideologies. And the more we are alone, thinking alone, studying alone, analyzing alone, the more dangerous it becomes. That's how you build extremism. When you build on your own values without listening to something else. So what did the rabbis say? You know how we do Shiur Torah? A group of people. Don't study alone. Go to shul. If you're out of line, somebody will tell you. You know, the Jews, we're pretty outspoken. If someone does something that somebody doesn't like, many times, you know, we don't know how to mind our own business. And that irritates a lot of our constituents, which is fine. That's normal. We don't like being told what to do. But that's just the way society works. That when you do something that someone doesn't like, he will probably let you know about it. And guess what? It may be annoying, but it's positive because you've just heard someone else's perspective. And when you listen to someone else's perspective, you are being changed probably forever. Listen. Learn how to listen. But today, there's no way to listen. And I'll prove it to you. And that's why extremism is growing day after day. You know why? It used to be that people used to go out and used to have conversation in the bank while online, or they would have conversation in the office, or in the street, or in the park, or on the line to the movie. Today, there's no such a thing because we don't talk to people. We're on our devices. You ever saw a line of people going to the bank? Each one on their cell phones. But even worse, if you have something that you want to talk about, if you have something that bothers you, if you want to find out about something, what did you used to do 20 years ago? You would talk with your friends. You would talk with your family. You would talk with people. And you exchange views. Today, I'm going to give you a typical scenario of what's going on now. Let's say you're a black person. And you hear everything which is going on. You didn't go to protest, but you hear what's going on. So what do you type? You're going to Google what you're looking for. Rabotai, this is the key here. You're going to Google what you are looking for. Those words that you are typing, it's like when you're typing a destination in a GPS. All the GPS could do is tell you how to get there, but you choose the destination. This person is probably going to type police violence towards innocent black males, right? You're going to Google that, and sure enough, you're going to have 2,000 articles, or 2 million articles, better said, that talk about this. And the more you're going to read, the more infuriated you're going to be, because it's going to fuel the anger that you have as a black person. It's going to fuel this anger to the point that you may go to the next level. You know why? Because you're not listening to another side. You're not looking for the truth. You're looking for what you're looking for. So you're typing whatever you want. That's how we do search. If you are interested in a certain topic, you want to watch a video about something, you go on YouTube and you're going to put there elephants. I'm interested in elephants. They're going to show you elephants. You're never going to come. Never going to find out about the crocodiles because you didn't know that they're showing crocodiles. You're not interested in crocodiles. So when you fuel your anger, because you find what your philosophy is, what your side, your point of view is, because the more you're looking for what you're looking for, you get the answer that you were looking for. And you can't hear someone else's perspective. At that point, this is how you grow. Extremism. Because we're not exchanging. We're looking to comfort ourselves. We're looking to find the points that we were thinking about. And that's how you fuel extremism. Someone who is a little bit anti-Semitic is going to Google something like, why are the Jews controlling the economy? Because he heard something like this. And all he's going to find is article after article about this. If he would have done that in an office space, someone probably would have said, what are you talking about? That's not true. This is conspiracy. Open your mind. Look for something else. That's how you build. That's how you make extremists. Extremism is born from the fact that we are narrowing ourselves into ourselves. That's extremism today, and that's why it's very, very hard to go against extremism these days because of the technology. So I would like to share with you what our Torah believes in extremism. Our Torah believes in extremism the following. The Rambam in Ilchot Deot, chapter 3, halacha 1. The Rambam tells us, I quote, a person may think and say that envy, desire, glory, kavod, derech ra'ah, the bad. And they take a person out of the world. Efrosh mehen beyoter. I'm going to separate from the good of this life. ותרחק לצד האחרון, I'm going to the other extreme. עד שלא יאכל בשר ולא ישתה יין ולא יישא אישה. To the point that one will not eat meat, will not drink good wine, will not get married, לא ישב בדירה נאה, will not live in a beautiful house, לא ילבש מלבוש נאה, he's not going to get dressed properly. I skip, the Rambam says, this is the example of Christian priests that believe that you have to separate from the goods of the world. The Rambam says, זה דרך רעה. This is a bad path. ואסור ללך בה. And it's asur to follow this path. כך אמרו חכמים. What the Chachamim said is the following. לא דייך מה שאסרה תורה, אלא שאתה אוסר עליך דברים אחרים? Isn't it enough what the Torah says that is asur? You want to add more things? You hear the Rambam? The Rambam is saying the Torah is perfect. God came to the world. He said the way the Torah is going to work is by listening to these 630 mitzvot. You want to add to that? Who do you think you are? That you're going to add to these things? God said you could eat meat. You're going to say, no, I can't. Like the Nazir. God said you have to marry and to have children, etc. You're going to decide not to. This is not the right derech, the Rambam says. Going extreme, it's not the derech of the Torah. I'll bring you a proof from a Gemara in Masechet Chulin. The Gemara tells us in Masechet Chulin, page 105, that in this week's parasha, Parashat Beha'alotecha, when the people complain about the lack of meat, Hashem's response was to send massive quantities of pheasants, chicken meat, which the people consumed and afterwards died. The Pasuk tells us the meat was still between their teeth, not yet gone, and the wrath of Hashem went against the people. The Gemara tells us that even after you eat meat, you're going to have to wait a certain amount of time before you could consume something that is dairy. Why? Because the Pasuk in this week's parasha says the meat was still between their teeth. Therefore, the meat stays in the teeth for a certain amount of time. So we all know this halacha, that we wait a certain amount of time between eating meat and eating dairy. Our minhag, the Sephardim, is to wait 6 hours. Some Ashkenazim wait 3 hours. Some wait 1 hour. Some wait 5. Some wait 4. You know the basis of this discussion in the halacha? I'm going to tell you what it is. The Gemara continues and says, Mar Ukba, one of the Chachamim of the Gemara says, I quote, regarding this matter, compared to my father, I'm like vinegar compared to wine. My father would wait 24 hours between meat and cheese. 24 hours. And while I would not eat meat and cheese in the same meal, I would eat cheese at the next meal, even the same day. So Marukwa is saying, my father was such a great person, he was like wine and I'm vinegar. He would wait 24 hours after eating meat. Can you imagine? You ate a meat steak, you have to wait until the next day, same time, to eat the Agendas ice cream. This is torture. So Marukwa said, I don't eat it together, but I wait between one meal and the next. Of course, this brought a machloket in the poskim. What is a meal between one meal and the next? Some understood it to be 6 hours. Some understood it to be 4 hours because in the winter it's shorter. So between lunch and dinner, for example, you'd have 4 hours. This is the opinion of a Peri Chadash, for example. Some say 1 hour because between one meal and the other, maybe afterwards you're a little hungry, you could take one. All it says in the Gemara is between one meal and the next. So you have many shittot. Rabbi Nutam says as soon as you finish the meal, you could start eating dairy already. It's another meal. Anyways, to make a long story short, this is the opinion of Mar Ukba. Did you pay attention to what I said? He says, my father waited 24 hours and I am like vinegar compared to wine. I ask you a question. If your father waited X amount, don't you do the same? Because that's how we do usually, right? Do you say, how many hours do you wait? What do you say? Well, in my house, meaning in my parents' house, we used to wait X amount of time, unless they were not observant, and then you become observant. But if they were, then you're going to follow what you did. So Mar Ukba, at one point, he gets up and he says, well, my father did 24 hours. I'm going to do 5. What? Why would you do that? Now, this, by the way, it's not a big chumrah to do. It's not like a big deal. He could eat vegetables throughout the 24 hours and then he'll have dairy. Like it's a pen on the neck, but it's not the end of the world. It's not like his father prayed an hour, the Amidah 1 hour, and he says, look, I'm not like my father. No, he prayed for 1 hour. What's the big deal? Rabotai, we see from here that it's not so simple to do a chumrah. When you go and you do a chumrah, Mar Ukba was saying, I am not just doing a chumrah because my father did. I'm doing a stringency because I'm up to that level to do a stringency. And if I'm not up to that level to do a stringency, then I don't do the stringency. Because doing a stringency, extremism, is not something that's necessarily positive. You have to know how to do it in a safe way. When you do a stringency, that means that you're going out from what exactly the Torah told you. And whenever you start to be flexible on one side, you could become flexible on the next side. Very easily. I used to know someone who was not so religious, but he waited after Shabbat for Rabbeinu Tam. I was always fascinated by this person. I said to him, tell me something. Why would you do that? Like, I mean, I have no problem, do whatever you want, but I'm just interested. You're a fascinating character. You're not careful with this, you're not careful with that. And here, Motzai Shabbat, you wait who knows how long for Shabbat to finish, Rabbeinu Tam, Mahmir. Why you do that? You know what he told me? And I thank him for being honest. He told me, you just said it yourself. There's so many things that I don't do too well. So at least, I balance it a little bit. I don't do it well here, so I'm going to do it better something else. Now, we even it out. I said, you know what? Thank you for being honest, but Torah is not business. You look at mitzvot and things like numbers, oh, here I mess up, so here I'm going to do something else good. That's not how it works. If you're at the level to do Rabbeinu Tam on Motzei Shabbat, you should be perfect on all the rest. Just do what the Torah tells you to do. Extremism is not something positive. And you're not the way, and there are many, many different sources that the Gemara tells us about extremism. For example, I don't know if you pay attention, but on Yom Kippur, the Vidui HaGadol of Rav Nisim Gaon that we say all the time. What do we say? Et asher timeta tiharti. Ve'et asher tiharta timeti. What you made impure, I purified it. And what you made pure, I impurified it. So on the first one, we understand why it's a problem. Something that was impure, I made it pure. Something which was taref, I made it kosher. Oh, that's a sin. But something that was kosher, I made it taref. Well, that's a chumrah, it's pretty precautious, I'm not eating something even if I'm allowed to. But see, it's at the same level. In the Tahanun, it's at the same level, even more. For rabbis, for example, it's a big responsibility. There's one of the great poskim, I forgot who it was, I think it was the Taz, who said, you got to be extremely careful when you give a psak halacha to someone that something is not kosher, for example. If it's not true, you're a thief. You're making a loss of money to someone who was going to have a meal, and this meal is going to go to the garbage now. So just because you want to be mahmir, you're going to make someone lose money? When you say about somebody that she's not tehorah, you're taking, you understand? You're taking away from the shalom bayit maybe. You have to be careful. Not just because it's more mahmir, it's better. That's not how it works. Because in the Torah, we like to be precise. We like to be exact. We like to be very sharp. To be mahmir in my eyes is not to do more. It's to do better. It's to do with more understanding. It's to do with more emotions. It's to do with more feelings. That's a chumrah for me. Not to do more. We don't put 2 mezuzot instead of 1. That's extremism. It doesn't work. We don't do these things. We know what the world looks like when it's extremists. We have to learn from everything around us. The world is turning extremist. That's just a fact. You see it. Everything becomes bigger and stronger. The ideology becomes more extreme. But we also do the same thing, and we should not be doing the same thing because we don't believe in extremism. It's not something good. So remember from today, Rabotai, when we use terms, we've got to be careful how we do that. We can't be exaggerating. That's how extremism comes. Very, very good person. You know, by the way, there's something fascinating about this. You know how, you want me to explain to you why people exaggerate everything? The more childlike they are, the more they exaggerate things. You know why? Very simple. A child understands black and white, good and bad. That's all. The child cannot understand that some things could be good on a certain aspect and bad on another. I'll give you an example. A child likes candies. Why? It tastes good. The child can't process the idea that the candy tastes amazing, but it's not good for your health. It doesn't make sense. Either it's good or it's bad. No, it's good taste, but it's not good for your health. So as a parent, I'm going to limit the amount of candies you're taking. A kid can't understand that. That's why when you take the candy away from the kid, he's going to scream at you. He's going to throw himself on the floor. As if you took the life away from them. Why? Because there are two categories, black and white. That's it. So they don't understand the category of the middle. They only understand exaggeration. Adults, they understand that between black and white, there are hundreds of cases, hundreds of gray areas. For something to be all white or all black, it's almost impossible, actually. Everything is in the middle. So you have to weigh with chokhmah if it's something you want to do or not. So you have moderation, or you don't do it, depending on the situation and each person. The kid can't understand that. It's either good or bad. They can't process that information. This is very important to know. When an adult, you talk to them and everything is like, it's amazing, or it's the worst thing ever. You know these people. That's mind-like people. That's a childlike minded people. That's everything is extremism. It's either amazing or it's terrible. That's a childlike way of thinking. By us, we could weigh things. We could say something is good, and that should be enough. I used to have a friend. It was a friend in my school when I was young, and she was a very, very good friend of mine. And I once called this girl and we spoke, and I said, I promise you that this, and that. She told me, can I correct you? I said, yeah. Why do you promise? I said, I don't know. That's just the way, we talk. She says, if you need to promise for me to believe you, that means that you lie when you don't promise. I said, oh my God, that was good. From that day, I don't promise anymore. I understood. If I tell you it's white, it's white. You should trust me. I don't have to. When you say something, I tell you, oh, come on. What do you say? I swear to God. I promise you. I don't do that. I say, no problem, your loss. I already told you what I think. Why do I need to promise for you to believe me? It's called exaggeration. It's called extremism. If it's not amazing, we don't go. If it's not an extremely smart person, we don't listen. If it's not a special program, we don't go to the class. If it's not a very brilliant individual, we won't take advice from this person. If it's not strictly kosher, we won't eat from it. We can't fall to that because the ones who fall to this, it's the same as the people who go from peaceful protest to breaking the whole New York City. That's called extremism. We don't do extremism. We do the truth. We do what's right. And you know how we don't fall into extremism? We do one thing. We listen. We listen to other people. We want to mingle with others so that when we have a view that may not be true, someone will be courageous enough to tell us, I disagree with you. Because when you welcome positive criticism, when you welcome other points of view, that's how you grow. That's how you don't close yourself into yourself. That's how you don't build your own philosophy into a religion. That's how we don't become extremists, when we welcome other people's comments. I want to take the opportunity to say that I had the pleasure and the privilege to get close to Victor for these past few years. And if you know Victor well, you'll know that what I'm saying is emet. That Victor is a bright person. He's an engine. He has power. And our shul would not be here if not because of his involvement. Of course, many other people's involvement, no question. But he's an engine. And he goes fast, sometimes too fast, but he just goes for something. But I want to say something very, very important. Victor could have been in age. And sometimes, I'm this young man, I have something to say, I say something. The first thing Victor says, he always listens. He will not, and it's not only from me, from other people. He will not just say, no, I decided. Those arrogant people that just have one way of thinking and nobody could change them, that's not a pleasure to work with them, because it's extremists. They have their way of thinking, and all they care is the way they think. That's called extremism. We don't like extremism. You know what we like? We like having conversations. Open any book of Gemara, it's always a discussion. Conversation. Only conversation. Open a book of law in law school, no conversation. This is the law, Habibi. There's no discussion here. Gemara, always discussing. This one says this, the other one says that. You know why? Because you have to be willing to listen. And if you're not willing to listen, you become an extremist. And these days we become extremists because we are looking for what we're looking for. But I want to tell you that with Victor, it's not the case. Because we talk and we say different perspectives. No, don't say no, that's the truth. We each one say different perspectives and we listen to one another. And if somebody else has something to say, we'll listen to that person. And that's how you grow. That's how you don't narrow yourself and you come and you say, you know what? You're right. I think your idea was better than my idea. Or I think my idea is better than your idea. It doesn't matter. The point is that we are open-minded enough to let other people infiltrate into us, to have an influence into us. That's the only way we could grow. If not, we become Hane Bavlaye Tipshaye. We become like these Bavlim who are stupid because they only study by themselves. We don't study by ourselves. We study in group. So we have a discussion. So we talk about things. So we don't narrow our mind to our way of thinking. But we take our way of thinking in the service of others to try to enlighten others and let other people's lights infiltrate us. That's the way we deal with extremism in our Torah. So I learned from this, no extremism, balanced approach. The way you do that, you mingle with others. You go, that's why the Chachamim always said, go to shul, go meet people, have them have an opinion on you, it's fine. Sometimes it hurts, it's okay. You open your mind that way. And the key to everything, open your ears and open your mind. This is the way you change into a better person. Thank you very much. And Shabbat Shalom.